Kia ora, Morva.
Kia ora.
Thank you very much for inviting me here to have a chat with you. This is for the 50th anniversary of music therapy in New Zealand. And you are, for people who don't know you, we could say the doyenne of music therapy, matriarch of music therapy, pioneer of music therapy.
I'm really the old crone.
I would love it if you could share with people a little bit about your history.
Well, I started off as a medical student and then I became a music student, and I went to Otago, Victoria and Auckland, and finally graduated with a Bachelor of Music from Auckland.
And I'd love to know how you came to music therapy.
In Auckland, actually, I went to a conference of my husband's and didn't really like the women's programs. And I went there and I was sitting at the back row and I looked at Paul Roy and he went, "Me? Yes, you." He said, "You're intellectualizing, aren't you, about this?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Well, do you know Beethoven's L'Adagio piano sonata?" I said, "Yes." "Will you play a major third, a perfect fifth, a diminished sixth?" And that's all he had to do, just the mix of those sounds and the mix of those intervals. It made me realize there's something in music that I've known was there, but I've never really put into words or into any action. So that's how I started.
So he made you feel it rather than intellectualize.
That's right, yes.
What was it about the music therapy then, from that little introduction, that made you want to continue?
I realised that there was a cross between mind and body, so that made me want to explore more. So I read quite a bit and did quite a bit of research on my own, really, and thought, well, this has got to be spread, and you only spread things if you're qualified yourself.
So in the early days of music therapy in New Zealand, or as you said, it was the New Zealand Society for Music Therapy at the time, there wasn't a course. So how many people went overseas to train?
Well, first, before I went, Joan Stevens and Christine Lockwood went and came back qualified. I was the third one to be qualified, and I went on the Mackenzie Scholarship, which brings in the very important person in music therapy, Sir Roy Mackenzie. He donated 5 music scholarships, and I went on one of them. And Roy really went on to help us in so many ways. Every time we went to see him about something, he said, "What can I help you with now?" So that was rather special in my life. He was a wonderful friend. And that thread of music therapy ended up in the Rakatari Music Therapy Centre, which is a very, very strong and very, very positive organisation. And we're very grateful to it because the access to the pop world through Hinewehi, and of course she's Dame Hinewehi now, it really opened doors for us. And that is quite important to remember, that it's who you know and where you go that it quite often determines the destiny of something. And that certainly was the case with that thread of music therapy.
And you've also been quite involved with the very first people on the course. So can you tell me a little bit about the people who helped you set up the course?
Well, Barbara Mabbott and Natalie Ellen and I wrote the course curriculum, if you like, and Donald Morris helped us with that. So, and the people at Massey, Barry MacDonald, George Shoesmith, it was quite amazing. They were mainly in the psychiatric field.
You spent, was it 25 years at the Teachers College here? Was it? Yeah, it's quite a long time. A long time nowadays in one position.
I've got a longer period. I was patron of 1 or 2 things, including the local orchestra, the Manawatu Sinfonia.
And of course, through all your previous positions, you were Chancellor at Massey University.
Yes, that sort of happened rather strangely, but anyhow, I was Chancellor for 5 years, and it was I was the only woman Chancellor Massey's had, and that still holds, Massey University. And I loved doing that, actually. It was very interesting. It was a very interesting time for students, and a very interesting time in terms of trying to get this new course off the ground. This is my era, because I'm 90. An awful lot of people really think that women can't do things, and we always kept having to prove ourselves one way or another, and that was nowhere more obvious than in trying to get the music therapy course going. It took about 18 years. It was a long time. Juliet Alvin sent Maggie Pickett, and then we got a whole lot of other people. We did a whole lot of courses, gradually with the help as chair of Dr. Fieldhouse, Professor Arthur Fieldhouse, and other people like Mary Brooks, Anne O'Rourke. They got together and we formed a committee headed towards an accreditation course, a New Zealand-based course. So we did it very carefully and did it with a mix of practical and theoretical things. And it really was Daphne Rickson and Joan Webster were the first two graduates. So it started them off on that music therapy trail. So I suppose I did push them to do it. I just said to Daphne one day, "You're going to be a tutor one of these days." She said, "I'll never be a tutor." And I said, "Yes, you will." She is.
I think you were very good at that, at seeing what people were capable of and pushing them perhaps beyond their comfort zones. I was not one of your students, but you certainly pushed me, and I owe you a lot for that, because I wouldn't have had my time on the council and things like that. I didn't have the confidence when I came back.
That's the word you need, confidence.
Yeah, and you actually, I was going to say you gave it to me, you told me I had it and told me I'd be good on the council and really gave me not a lot of choice, but it was one of the best things that happened to me in terms of developing as a music therapist in New Zealand.
I'm very glad of that then.
Well, and I thank you for it. So we heard it, that you failed at something. That's probably the only time I've ever heard of you not being an incredible success at something.
Well, having done the beginnings of medicine, I got to second year before I failed. Well, I think everybody fails somewhere, somehow, and they quite often don't admit it, so you are.
Now, I've had a look at a list of all your many qualifications. I can't even remember them all. There are too many to count. But also a number of honours that you've received over the years. And the biggest, obviously, being your CBE, Commander of the British Empire. What a lovely colonial title now.
The students really were funny, the music students. I walked in, so they stood up and clapped, and that was fair enough. And one of them said, "What do you have to do? Do you have to salute for a commander of the British Empire?" No, you just sort of accept it. And the other one said, "We've got you on the fridge, a photo of you on the fridge next to Sting."
You told me that had been quite useful over the years, but that you didn't actually initially want to take it.
No, well, Roy Mackenzie really helped me with this, because he turned down a knighthood, and then years later he took one. And we said to him, "Why did you take this? And you turned it down before." He said, "If you want a qualification to help you in any way whatsoever in something you want to do, you take it nowadays." So he was quite right, really.
We were talking before, I'm just going back a step, about some of your titles. Now you've got the Master of Philosophy. You actually received an honorary doctorate as well.
Yes, in literature.
And who was that from?
Massey. They more or less gave it to most of the chancellors. It was really sort of attached to a retiring chancellor if you'd done a good job, sort of thing. So there were a lot of things like that, and it felt a little bit like an obituary, really, with all this CBE stuff. And I decided I'd give myself a qualification, an honour. So I've got the PLOGY. Do you know what that is?
No.
Plenty of life on the old girl yet.
Absolutely. When was that?
1995, I think. 95, yes, round about then.
Are you aware of the title that the students gave you?
Yes, they gave me several titles. They could Morva the Music Dragon. Students were great fun.
So following on from that, how would you like to be remembered? What is your legacy? What would you like that to be in the future?
Well, people that went for what they believed in, really, not just to accommodate, but to strike out on a truthful path in the spirit of music therapy, to do things in a truthful way, using music as the agent. So anything that I've done in the past, I've tried to have a purpose.
Did you ever follow your heart specifically?
To do music therapy, exactly I did. Because people sort of said, "What on earth is this thing you think you're going to do?" So music therapy won.
Music therapy won.
Yeah.
And how about the course? What do you see as the future for the course? What would you like to see?
I've been out of it for too long, actually, having taught in it, and people have different teaching styles. I think you should continuously refresh your own style. Don't just get stuck in a groove and repeat the same thing over and over again. Try and go to conferences, try and write, try and do things that explore your dominion. And by doing that, you keep yourself refreshed and enjoy what you're doing.